Night Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to Football Time Show. We're here for our NFL season preview, and we're in part two, the NFC side of things. We're moving from the AFC to the NFC. If you want to watch part one and the AFC, be sure to check that out on our YouTube channel. With us, as always, is Achilles Reign to get into the NFL season. Part 3 is coming as well for our NFL Player Future Awards. But right now we're going to break down the NFC and our NFC team futures here. So, you ready to get into the NFC side of things here, Achilles? There are not as many good teams in this side.
It's a little different from last season.
We don't have a lot of depth here. We just went over the AFC, where I think you can make a case that everybody but about 3 teams has a chance for the playoffs. And this one, I'm struggling for anybody but about 3 teams to come out of the NFC. So let's kick things off with the NFC East. I think everybody's media darling has turned into the Philadelphia Eagles, so what could go wrong in the probably $3,000 worth of team futures I have on the Philadelphia Eagles here? So we both got the Eagles up there. You have Dallas second. I have the Giants second. You have the Giants third. I have Dallas third. And the Commies bringing up the rear, and their team strategy of bringing in Carson Wentz surely looks to be going quite well. So how do you come about your rankings here, and why are we going to get burned on Philly and probably lose a lot of money week 1?
Well, if history teaches us anything, it's don't trust Philly. But listen, I'm really high on Philly this season. I really like some of the additions they made. I know that you've been pretty high on them based off the last show. It seems like a lot of your future bets, spoiler alert, have something to do with the Eagles. But guess what?
You're going to get a 10-minute rundown of them in about 5 minutes.
It's okay because I like the Eagles also, and I've got a couple of Eagles bets myself, and maybe I'll get some more after listening to you. So I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I think the additions of, A.J. Brown, you got another year of Devontae Smith. Jalen Hurts probably is the weak link there, but I don't think he's a weak link in the regular season. I think he's a competent regular season quarterback. I think players like him too, which I think is really important. Maybe if you struggle or you can't make a pass, at least the players like you and aren't looking over your shoulder to sort of get the next guy up. And mentioning that, the next guy up is Gardner Minshew. So I think even if Hurts were to either get hurt or really, really struggle to the point where they have to bench him, you got a pretty solid backup in there to mix with their weapons. I thought they've upgraded their defense, as well to really improve. That's probably the other big question mark. Can that secondary hold up? We know that pass rush is going to be fierce. They've made some additions to the secondary. If it can hold up, I look for this Eagles team to really roll. And then you look at their schedule. It's really, really soft. Very soft. You mix in the division where we'll get to Dallas here in a second, but I don't think Dallas is going to be even what Dallas was last year. So I look for down there, and then maybe we get an upgrade with the Giants, but I think I put the Giants second just based on I think Dallas isn't going to be good. It's not that I think the Giants are going to be...
I was about to give you such a hard time. You gave me a hard time over my love for the Giants over the last couple of years. And then I see my list, and I'm like, he's got the Giants second. I was like, what?
I think this is more Dallas bad. And then, we don't have to break down the Washington football team other than I take
They're breaking themselves down. Don't worry about it.
In everything. So let's switch to Dallas here. Even with Smith healthy, I thought the weird thing with Cooper and releasing him, I know he cost a bunch, but you're asking CeeDee Lamb to be a number 1. And we haven't seen CeeDee Lamb be a number 1. So you're starting to downgrade that. The running back situation is what it is. We can all, convince ourselves that Ezekiel Elliott was hurt last year and the year before, but we've all watched running backs for the last 30 years. And as stats seem to decline year to year to year, it doesn't magically pop back up into a 1,500-yard season. It usually declines more the next year. So, and the other thing I worry about Dallas, which I'm curious about you, the defense improved last year, but improved in, like, turnovers. Like, Diggs had those 8 picks. Is Diggs going to get 8 picks? And are we going to get, 10 defensive and special team scores from Dallas? Those are little fluky things that don't happen to carry over year and year. So I look for a little bit of regression here on the Dallas defensive side of the things. And the coaching probably doesn't need to be brought to light. I'm sure it'll be brought to light basically all season long in our review of the games. But what do you think of Dallas, and how far do you think they will regress back here?
Well, listen, you talked about the turnovers in that defense, which was the worst defense. We talked about Titans defense in our previous show, but the Cowboys defense was the worst defense in the NFL going into like the final week of the year 2 years ago. You talk about the big turnaround last season, and it's a little misconstrued. It's a little murky, okay? Because yes, they got better. They couldn't have gotten any worse. But in the reasons they got better was turnovers. Okay. Now they got Micah Parsons there, who's a really good player in my opinion. And Diggs is also a really good player, but can you replicate what he did last season? I think it's really, really, really hard to do. And defensively, they weren't great. They were better. They weren't great. They were a lot better at causing turnovers, and not just causing turnovers, but taking advantage of those situations. But one of the reasons why they got better was because their offense was still potent enough to where they made it so that other teams, opposing teams, had to throw the ball. They had to, just to try and stay in the game. I think that offensively they got worse. I think that keeping Ezekiel Elliott at running back as your number one is a mistake, especially when you got a guy like Pollard, who, in my opinion, has looked way better than Ezekiel has looked. Not just that, you're going to pay all that money to a position that deteriorates quickly at the running back position, and you're not getting that much production out of it. Then you're going to get rid of your number one wideout. As you mentioned, CeeDee Lamb's supposed to be the number one guy. I think he's more of a complimentary guy. The reports coming out of camp during the last offseason was that he was looking really, really good. He was looking like the next big thing. And I kind of jumped into the Kool-Aid, and I got splashed. I'll be honest with you. He didn't have the type of season I was expecting out of him. Now we're supposed to expect that with someone taking less attention on the outside, he's going to have a better year.
Yeah,
it's really hard for me.
The other thing is Gallup, who is coming off a legit injury. You don't totally know when he's going to come back. And then I think the other thing is Cedric Wilson left to go to the Dolphins. Cedric was a solid piece there, and losing that, I think, hurts them as well. So
Smith is out also, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And then you complement that with Smith, who, it started season ending, and then they keep pushing, it up like, oh, he'll be back in December. And then it's, well, maybe the last week of November. A very large man who was already starting to get miles on him completely blows out his hamstring. I'm not 100% sold. He's going to, even if he comes back.
What's he going to look like?
Yeah. He's not going to be able to move, really, for 2 months. And usually someone that large, if they aren't moving, it doesn't benefit them. So it just, things seem to be piling on Dallas, where this could be one of those down years. Not to mention the coaching situation, where Sean Payton is sitting there, probably going to be making funny jokes on pregame shows the whole season long and teasing them into maybe he'll come, maybe he won't, sort of thing. So I just look at that situation as sort of poisonous, and I'm wondering what we're going to get out of them. I guess we got to talk a little bit about the Giants-Washington. Honestly, I don't know what I'm getting out of the Giants' offensive side of the ball. Daniel Jones is a question mark. Saquon Barkley has not looked healthy for 2 years. He's in a contract year, so if there's going to be a year where he looks healthy, it will probably be this year. the wide receiver room in the Giants is weird. You have Kenny Golladay, who basically looks to have gotten his $75 million guaranteed and taken the retirement plan of, I will show up to work, but I'm no longer going to be a productive receiver. You got Cadarius Tony, who, that's possibly the biggest wild card in the NFL. 1 week he might catch a 75-yard pass and look like the best receiver in the league. And the next week he might be doing something completely crazy and insane. I really like that rookie, Wan'Dale Robinson, but once again, we've talked about rookie receivers and staking your digs to rookie receivers. So I have no clue what I'm getting from the offensive side of things. I think the Giants will be pretty solid defensively. They've been all right in that side of things the last couple of years. So maybe they're better. Washington, I don't know what to say. The receiver room looks okay. They're doing weird things with Antonio Gibson. I read that he's going to kick and punt return. Why put your number one running back in kick and punt return situations? I don't know. They've never utilized him to catch, even though he was an ex-receiver in college. Carson Wentz is going to be the starting quarterback, and I think we were both pretty hyped up on that defense last year, and
bit of a letdown.
Really let us down, and I don't see why that would improve. So anything on Giants-Washington that makes you believe anything other than maybe a top-end 7-8 wins?
I've kind of hyped the Giants up over the last couple of seasons, and at this point, I'm kind of worn out at being their hype man, especially when they don't show up to the party. So I'm kind of trying to take my foot off the gas there with the Giants love. And as far as the commies are concerned, I just, wow, what a train wreck it's turned into. And listen, it's going to get better at some point, but just right now,
are we going to be alive when it gets better?
I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but
are Commanders still going to be their name when it gets better?
No, probably not. They'll be back to the Redskins at that point. But you mentioned the fact that they're using their running back to return kicks. Listen, that was a strategy I used to use back in Madden 12 or Madden 13. I can't remember what year it was, but it didn't work out too well for me. I don't think it's going to work out too well for them either. But listen, this is probably the weakest division of football, but there definitely is at least some hope coming, out of certain teams like the Eagles and not so much the Cowboys, but we'll see what happens. I'm really high on the Eagles for this division. I think the Commies are going to be in last place. I don't think that there's really a way to flip it. I think the battle here is that 2 and 3 spot between the Cowboys and the Giants.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, let's get to our futures. I'll go over the easy ones first, and then I'll reel off the Eagles. Cowboys, I got 2. Cowboys under 10.5 wins. I thought that was a ridiculously high win total. At minus 145, I'm going under 10.5. 11 wins. That's a lot. And then I have an alternate one. Dallas Cowboys to win 6 or less games. That's plus 680. If this thing really falls through, I think that's doable there. And at almost 7-1, I thought that was really good value. The Washington Commanders, I couldn't find anything worth betting on over or under because basically I don't even know what is going to come out of that place. Giants, winning record, plus 230. I figure if everybody is so bad in this division, someone other than the Eagles might have to win games. So you're giving me 230. I took a shot. Now, when I watched them turn the ball over 7 times in their first game, I probably will write that off and just take it at a loss. But I thought 230 was decent value. Okay, Philadelphia Eagles. I have $3,500 worth of Philadelphia Eagles props here. So, Philadelphia Eagles to win the Super Bowl, 20-1. I like that one. Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC. That one I like even more at 10-1. I think there's really, really good value. We'll get to this sort of regression maybe the Rams have after winning the Super Bowl. Whatever the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going on down there. the retired, unretired, taking a mini vacation to probably get a divorce from his angry wife, who is now living in Costa Rica. And then the Packers trading their best offensive weapon. So, that sort of leaves the Eagles sitting in and around there humming. So 10-1 there. I really, really like that on the side of things. Then probably my biggest bet of the futures. Philadelphia Eagles, NFC East winner, plus 145. I have 12.50 on that one. At 145, you can easily cross off Giants and Washington here. That leaves Dallas as your lone real contender to win this division. I think 145, Eagles win NFC East. However much excess cash you have, and you don't mind it being held for 6 months, I would put it on that. So I really like that one. Eagles to beat Baltimore in the Super Bowl, 220-1. Eagles to beat Bills, Super Bowl, 85-1. Eagles to beat Colts, 270-1. Eagles to beat Chiefs, 130-1. This was the other one I really, really liked. Eagles Niners championship game, 27-1. I thought that was really, really good value there. 27-1. That's a really good stake there. The other one I like, Eagles number 1 seed. Go look at their schedule. It is 10-1, Eagles number 1 seed. That is ridiculous value for these sort of bad teams that the Eagles are going to play. And if that talent level is what we think it is on paper, I think they probably cruise to the number 1 seed here. So I really like that one. Eagles over 9.5 wins at minus 145, like that one. Eagles best record at 16-1. I really like that one. Once again, they're playing in the NFC side of things. Much, much easier conference. There are better teams in the AFC, but those teams all have to play each other. So I think losses will rack up. I like that Eagles number 1 overall seed very, very much. Then I got some exact order divisions. I like these two. Eagles, Giants, Cowboys, Washington. And then Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Washington, I think is pretty good value. The Cowboys Giants one is 5-1. The Giants Cowboys one is 20-1. So I think there's decent value there. And then Eagles Giants 1-2 exact order 15-1. I thought pretty decent value there. So a whole lot of Eagles love in this one. Where are you going on the NFC East side of things?
I've got a couple of player bets for the NFC East, but I've only got a couple for the futures here. One of them you mentioned was the Eagles to win the NFC East. Another one that you mentioned also was the NFC East straight forecast. And that one, obviously, I have Philly, Dallas, New York, and Washington.
Yeah.
One of the other ones, though, that you mentioned that I also really like, and I have that one myself, is the Eagles to be the number 1 NFC seed at plus 1,400. Yeah. Plus 1,400. Now, I'll remind you, I'm using the same logic that I did in our previous show with the Colts. They have the 26th ranked strength of schedule based off last season's performances. 26th. And they play in the NFC. And they play in the NFC East. I mean, I think that if you're looking for a long shot with really good value that has the potential to hit, I think look no further than the Eagles.
Yeah. The long shot value on there, I think, is the best of like all my long shot value. Because, I mean, we'll get into the Rams, and I don't think they're going to be bad. But I do think there'll be a little bit of Super Bowl hangover. I don't know how serious they're going to take this regular season. I think their focus will be to get in the playoffs and then try to flip a switch and make a run. You look at the Niners, you're in wild card situation with what Trey Lance is going to do. And we already talked about, the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Green Bay Packers, who, I think will be really good, but I want to see that offense hum before I'm ready to stake a claim there. So I think that 14-1, great value for a long shot on the season. So we're moved to the north here of the NFC side of things. And yes, we have to discuss these next two divisions, the north and the south. Of divisions with loaded bad teams, these are the ones that are really, really poor. We both have Green Bay. We both have Minnesota, and then Detroit and Chicago. We will discuss them, I suppose. But, honestly, you can convince me Minnesota offensive firepower might be able to give a little bit of a charge to Green Bay. But I've watched Minnesota play football, and it's basically like the Chargers. No matter how much talent is acquired on that, they win the same number of games every year. It's 7, it's 8, it's 9. They will lose some stupid games. So I guess question one is, what do you think Green Bay will be? No Devontae Adams. We're going with Alan Lazard, and I guess they throw Randall Cobb in there, but I think the young receivers will sort of dictate how good this team is. Green Bay's defense will be really, really good, but what can Green Bay do this year?
Listen, I'm of the mindset that great quarterbacks make okay wide receivers good.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the situation here with Green Bay. And listen, most of the reason why I have Green Bay first in this division is because, again, their consistency throughout the years of them being up there. Aaron Rodgers, love him or hate him, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So you can't take that away from him. And I know that he lost his best weapon, but you look at prior Devontae, he was making other wide receivers look great. You'd have these wide receivers go elsewhere, and they couldn't do anything, and they'd come right back to where they left because the quarterback play is so great there. That being said, I don't think that the Packers are going to be as good as they were, and I don't think a lot of people are going to be shocked by that simply because they lost a lot of their talent. And yes, I did just say that, great quarterbacks make players good, even though mediocre players good, but it's hard to replace a guy like Devontae, a guy that you could just throw it up, have it near him. He'll go up and try and make a play on it. There's not a lot of them out there. So I think there's going to be a bit of a regression, but I think that there's been a bit of a regression with most of this team in this division. You look at the Minnesota Vikings, probably the award goes out to them for the most consistent Jekyll and Hyde team in history. You talk about a team that looks like one of the most potent, unstoppable offenses in the league, and then they turn the next week and they can't get 14 points on the board. So it's so wishy-washy with them that I just had to get this division of Green Bay. And I honestly, if you were to, at the end of the year, we come back and we look at it and we got, let's say, like Minnesota up there, I wouldn't be shocked. But as far as money being tied up and things like that, I have to put them in first place for that division.
Yeah. I think there could be a question, too, whether we think Alan Lazard is an even okay receiver. That's where I think it gets a little nervous. You have Alan Lazard. He's been okay, but how much more of a leap can he make, and what are you getting from rookie receivers? Now, they got those 2 running backs there who I'm sure are going to catch, a billion balls. And the other thing is this division is just so bad. We're having to talk ourselves into Minnesota being a contender just so we can we both live the life of the Vikings, and nobody wants to live that life of the Minnesota Vikings. So let's move to Detroit and Chicago. Detroit's getting a lot of hype for some unknown
Hard
reason.
Knocks, because of Hard Knocks. That's why. And I got to be honest with you, I love, me, I watch Hard Knocks every season, and I always, find something to fall in love with the team about. And listen, they got Jared Goff. I'm always going to root for Jared Goff, former Ram, but you see all these little things going on, behind the scenes, and it makes me like the Lions, even though it's not my team, and I probably don't see them doing much. It makes me root for them a little bit. So,
yeah. I will say I do think they'll be better, but better probably means like a 6-win cap. So that's not exactly like they're going to be tearing the roof off. And then honestly, Chicago, we'll get to it in futures, but I just think they are going to be dreadful. They, once again, for some reason, unbeknownst to everyone, have no offensive line to speak of, though they're trying to break in a rookie quarterback. I don't think you could tell me a receiver on their team other than maybe Darnell Mooney, who while I like Darnell Mooney, I don't know if Darnell Mooney could handle being triple covered because there's going to be nobody else to throw the ball to. And then basically they've gotten rid of everybody else on the defensive side of the ball. And the good ones that remain are all trying to be let go on that side of the ball. This team just seems like a mess to me. This organization basically just seems like a mess to me. Is there any hope here? And what they're doing to Josh Fields, I wasn't a fan, but this kid just has no chance to get better and progress
Justin
as
Fields?
a rookie quarterback.
Justin Fields?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm not the biggest Fields fan here. I thought that they did a bit of a disservice to Trubisky while he was there. Even though he wasn't
they're
going
doing
to
a bigger one to Fields now. So
yes, and it's very unfortunate because I've seen flashes out of him, and something that I didn't think I would see. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest Fields guy, but I've seen flashes of him, and it's the only reason because of what I've seen from him. Is the only reason that I have them ahead of the Lions in my division standings for the NFC North. But yeah, man, I mean the whole organization up and down just seems to be in dire need of some CPR. I'm watching the preseason game, and they're showing the field, Soldier Field. Is it still called Soldier Field?
Yes,
Did you see that field?
Well, I think they're building a new one, like in Indiana or something, where the old racetrack used to be. So,
but I mean, dude, is that an excuse to say this is NFL game worthy? I mean, when you look at a team, for example, like the Rams, I know the Rams have a new multi-billion-dollar stadium, but you look at that stadium, even though it's artificial, and then you look at the Bears field, and it looks like it's been trampled by a stampede of bison. I mean, it looked horrible. And again, a lot of this is just the organization and going through their changes. And it just seems like they aren't trying really hard. And I hate the fact that Fields is going to, go out on the field with that offensive line. But the good thing is that he's mobile enough and young enough. Yes. The good thing he has going for him is that he's young and mobile and possibly could extend his career by getting away from defenders coming after him, because I feel like he's going to be under a lot of pressure this season.
Yeah. All right. Let's move to futures on this division. I don't have a ton in this one. I got a couple Green Bay ones, mostly exact order because I just thought this one was pretty easy and predictable exact order wise. You can get Green Bay, Minnesota. 1-2 exact order at plus 165. If that's not the exact order, I'd be very, very stunned. So Green Bay Vikings plus 165 exact order. Then you got Green Bay, Vikings, Lions, Bears exact order plus 410. And then I just took a shot that maybe the Lions are good, which, hey, whatever. They're giving me 750. Packers, Lions, Vikings, Bears, plus 750. Vikings, highest scoring team, 20-1. They do have a lot of offensive weapons, and it wouldn't stun me that they score a lot of points in games. So 20-1 I thought was pretty good value there. Bears, under 5.5 wins, I thought was really, really good value. If they get 6 wins, I would call that a minor miracle. Really. And then worst record was plus 750. So I thought there was pretty good value there as well. Anything for you in the NFC North?
I've got a couple of player props, a couple of player picks. I've got one, which I even wrote in my notes here. A living on a prayer is what the note says, and it's the Bears to win the NFC North at plus 1100. Honestly, looking around there, there's just so much uncertainty for me within this division that I didn't like. Even though I'm playing with company money here, I didn't like the odds for much of it. I like a couple of the ones you mentioned. Unfortunately, those weren't in my sports book, but I'll probably have to jump into another one and take a couple of those.
Are you thinking Canada is going to overtake Minnesota and Wisconsin and claim rule, and the Bears are the only team left?
Yeah, that's a possibility, I guess. It happened in South Park.
Yeah, well, that might go. All right. Let's move to the South. This one might even be weirder than the North because I think we still think Green Bay, while might not be as good as the last couple of years, will still be a pretty solid team. I have no clue what we're getting here. Tampa Bay, the offensive line issues are going to be weird. You still have them first. After this weird Tom Brady thing, I moved him down to second, but I didn't really know who to put first. I will admit, because there are questions in New Orleans. There are a lot of questions in Carolina, and I'm not 100% sure Atlanta is trying to win football games. So I didn't really know what to do with this division. I've already talked a little bit about Tampa. There is talent there, but, I don't know when Godwin's coming back. You got the weird thing with Brady. Offensive line injuries are already starting to happen. I think the defense will still be good. I don't know that Todd Bowles, Bruce Arians' replacement is really that big a deal. But, it just seems like last year was sort of the window, and now it's sort of shut. But then Brady randomly unretired. They wouldn't let him out of his contract so he could go to the Niners or the Dolphins. And what do you make of Tampa here?
Listen, the only reason why I have Tampa Bay in first place to win this division is because of Tom Brady. I've encountered no situations where I voted against the man and it came back and bit me in the neck. So I'm not of the trend of betting against Brady. But even that being said, I think that if you just look at these teams as a whole, I think that the team with the most talent in this division is probably the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
A team who's been very successful over the last few years until Brady got to Tampa Bay. So again, I'm not going to vote against Brady, but I'm like you, man. I'm kind of torn as far as to where to really put all these teams.
Yeah, let's get into the Saints here. You mentioned I still think defensively they have a lot of talent. And offensively, if Thomas is healthy, you bring in the rookie Olive, and you still got Kamara there. Now, the question goes to quarterback. You got Jameis there. Say what you will. I think he's an NFL quarterback. Whether I think he's a good one is a different question. But I think he could get the ball to these people. So I think they will be okay offensively. My big question goes to coaching. I thought they went really, really cheap and went to Dennis Allen just because he was convenient and there, and the defense has been solid. But you look at Dennis Allen the last handful of years as a head coach in Oakland, because they were still in Oakland and he was brutal. And they were brutal, and that team was brutal, and they had no organization. And I just don't know what to expect from them. The talent's there. If there's, enough left over DNA from Sean Payton, then I think they could sort of sneak up and grab this division. But I just don't know what to make of New Orleans here. What do you make of New Orleans here?
Honestly, like I said, I think that New Orleans is probably the most talented team as far as depth goes in this division. You talk about Michael Thomas, who was probably one of the better wide receivers in the league while he was healthy and full go. How much of that is attributed to the fact that Sean Payton was the head coach and Drew Brees was the quarterback? I'm sure a lot of it does, but you have to look at the tape and notice that this guy's got raw talent regardless. So a talented wide receiver is probably going to make things happen. Again, the big question mark is, like you said, quarterback and coach. And what are we going to get from these guys?
Probably the two biggest things in the NFL you need, which is
what's so
weird.
for them.
Because surrounding it is loaded team, and then you got quarterback, coach question.
Not to mention the fact that this defense has been probably one of the better defenses in the NFC over the last few years. They seem to step up in big game situations, and they've kept their team in it, even when the offense wasn't quite clicking. But I've got them going second in this division just based off talents alone. But I still think that a lot of question marks. I think it's going to probably be about half the season until we know what this Saints team is really going to be.
Yeah. Carolina, I will say I'm starting to talk myself into Carolina. I'm not a huge Baker guy, but I will say it is a large upgrade over Sam Darnold being behind center. So they still got some wide receiver weapons. Christian McCaffrey, it's the same question.
Wait, he's healthy?
He is healthy, currently speaking. If we can get 15 to 16 games out of Christian McCaffrey, I think this team at least puts itself in the mix, especially since they still have good pieces on defense. But what do you make of Carolina? What do you make of Baker here? Because he's basically playing for a contract. If he's good, I think somebody will take the chance and pay him some money. And if he's bad, we're probably looking at, backup QB here. This is probably Matt Rule's last chance before, they give him the hee-ho. What do you make of Carolina here?
I think that if any team had a shot at trying to flip the standings within this division, it's probably going to be this Panthers team, just because of the guys they brought in. Baker Mayfield, like you said, I'm also not the biggest Baker guy, but I think he's an adequate quarterback, a game manager. And I said it all last year. I thought that the Cleveland's best approach of attack was to use their defense and their running attack to win that division, and use Baker Mayfield more as a game manager. They put the ball too many times in his hand, and I feel like that cost him. But I'll tell you what I am excited about. Week 1, Panthers and Browns. Baker Mayfield going up against his old team, and just kind of the way everything ended. I'm excited to see that, and I think that if it might set off a trend. If he plays he plays aggressive, and he plays confidently. I think that could set up a good thing going forward for the rest of the season, because I think if that's the case, I think he takes the reins and doesn't look back. There was question marks about whether Darnold or Baker would be the starter. I think I felt all along that Baker was the better quarterback of the two, but there's certain people out there who are huge Sam Darnold fans who started to sway me a little bit just with their praise of the guy. But I think that Baker's the better of the two here, and I think that first game is going to be sort of a telltale sign as far as to what trajectory that Carolina Panthers team is headed to.
Yeah, I think I'm the most torn on Carolina. Like, if I said they were going to finish like 4-12, well, I guess it would be 4-13 or 5-13. I don't think we'd be stunned, But I also could see a way where they win 10, 11, maybe even 12 games and are the surprise team. You get a full season out of McCaffrey. Baker's solid. He's not doing dumb things. That defense holds up, and this division turns into a train wreck. So it's just weird how you look at Carolina, where it could be really, really bad, and it could probably be good, where they're sort of a dark horse in that playoff standing where you're like, oh, they might can make a run here. So I didn't know what to do. To me,
they not that they're at the same talent level, but they have a feel of last year's Cincinnati team.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
A team that has, pretty good potential, and you could see them possibly making, a push for a playoff spot, but a team that you also wouldn't be shocked if they just turned around and had a bad year.
Yeah. Do we want to do any breakdown analysis of Atlanta, other than the coach they hired 2 years ago is probably going to be fired because they're going to be awful? Anything?
Listen, I do want to say I really like Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, I know. But this was not the spot to try to resurrect your career.
Possibly not. But, I mean, how many teams were you really going to get a shot to start with?
Yes, I know. I don't know what to say. Pitts is going to be good. Rookie receiver might be all right. Their line is awful. Maybe Cordell Patterson is good again, though that seems like a random sort of 32.
Are you expecting what he did last season?
No, but I didn't expect last season, after watching him for 12 years and him randomly becoming a top 5 running back in the league. So, hey, whatever. I don't know what to make of Atlanta, other than they might not be good and probably are tanking to get a good draft pick. We'll see if Mariota gets in there. Maybe Ritter gets in there from Cincinnati, see if he has anything future-wise, what are you on the NFC South? I don't got a ton of stuff here. I got Tampa Bay, exact finish third, 11-1, if they really do drop off a map, and Carolina and the Saints raise up. And I thought Tampa Bay's win total, 11.5. That seemed really high. As much as I'm down on the NFC, I don't think Tampa's going to start well. Now, they might grow into the season and find their form late, especially once Godwin gets back to full health and stuff. But I think Tampa's starting off slow, and 12 wins, that seemed like a lot. So I'm under on that. Saints NFC South winner was 3-1. I thought that was pretty decent value. And then Carolina, I got a couple in here because I played that maybe it's the magical season. So to reach the NFC Championship game was 32-1. NFC South winner, 15-1. This one I thought was probably the best one of the group. Carolina Panthers, NFC wildcard, plus 750. Basically just go. Take, the playoff spots. Go through the NFC. It drops really, really quick. And I think it's really... Carolina doesn't even have to be that good to maybe grab that last wild card spot. So I thought 750 was really, really good value. Mixed with a winning record, Carolina Panthers plus 300 I thought was really good. And over 6.5 wins plus 105 I thought was a decent value here for the Carolina Panthers. So a couple things on the Carolina Panthers if they turn out to be a pretty solid team. I had nothing on the Atlanta Falcons. I'm just going to watch in horror as I have to end up taking them when they're getting 16.5-point lines in 3 weeks into the season. And I have to convince myself that they're really tricky with the Mariota-Pitts combo. So anything for you out of the NFC South?
I've got a couple player bets, and then I've got one future bet, which is the Saints to reach a wild card spot at plus 310. Again, I mentioned that the Saints, in my opinion, have the most talent throughout that team, both defensively and offensively. So I feel like even if Tampa Bay and Tom Brady come out, guns a-blazing, as Tom usually does, then I still think the Saints have a pretty good shot at making a wild card spot. And at plus 310, I think you're getting pretty decent value there.
Yeah, me too. I think that's pretty good. The only worry I had about that one, because I looked at it, was that maybe the Saints win the division. And that's the one I was concerned about. The thing I was looking at is what you can do is take Saints to win the division and that one. Both are around 3-1. So, you lose.
You end up making money.
You lose a little bit of money, but you're still getting plus out of both. And it's better than the value of Saints to make the playoffs. I looked at that one, and that one wasn't, it's better to take both those than to take just Saints to make the playoffs. All right, let's move to the NFC West. And, I think you sort of see how far the NFC's talent has fallen once you go here. Because last year in our preview, we were discussing how all 4 teams might be able to make the playoffs. And I think we're talking 2 teams in this division this year. And that's about it. So, I have San Francisco on top because I think the Rams won't take the regular season as serious. Used to have the Rams up top. We both got San Francisco. You have them second. I have them third. And then we flip-flop Arizona and Seattle. But we'll talk about the top 2. I want to talk about these bottom 2 teams. Do you think you're getting anything from either of these teams? Seattle, Arizona, there's talent. But you got the weird thing with Seattle where they're going to go in the season with Geno Smith as a quarterback. Say what you will, but, I don't think you can convince yourself you're going to win 8, 9, 10 games a season with Geno Smith at your quarterback, even if you do have a good running back, you do have good receivers. What do you make of Seattle and Arizona here?
Listen, as far as Seattle's concerned, I don't think that going with Geno Smith is such a horrible idea. Now,
it's better than Drew Lock. I will admit that.
Yes. But look, they could have had guys like I mean, I doubt it would have happened. You could have had a guy like Baker Mayfield, though, or even Jimmy G. But it seemed like they waited too long, and they're stuck, and they're going to stick to the guns, and they're going to come out and say the right things to try and build confidence within that quarterback room. But I think that they know that they waited too long to make a move, and at this point, you have no choice but to wait it out. They still have some talented guys. They have DK Metcalf, one of the more talented raw, and a lot of people give him a lot of love, call him one of the better wide receivers. I don't think he's quite there yet.
The best receiver on his own team.
I think, I agree with you. I think Tyler Lockett's probably more complete wide receiver. But don't get me wrong, DK Metcalf has a very high ceiling.
Yeah.
He's a monster. He can go after the ball. He's super fast for a guy his size. So he's got a lot of good things going his way. But I don't think he's quite developed to the point where he should be at, or where people put him at. The Cardinals, again, they scare me a little bit just because how hot they've been over the last couple of seasons. They seem to fizzle out as the season, closes out. But they lost a little bit of talent. But the talent that they lost this year, I felt like was on the older side, talent that they're probably going to be okay without, going a little bit younger. So Arizona scares me a little bit. But if you ask me, I still think this division is a 3-team division.
My problem with Arizona here is, you mentioned it, they've started hot the last couple of years and then tailed off. But they're not going to have Hopkins for the first 6 games of the season. So
I wonder why.
Well, he took contaminated substances.
That's what it was.
He didn't know what he was putting in his body. He's a professional athlete. It's only his job to know what he's putting in his body.
Did he have a tapeworm? Oh, no, that was a baseball. I'm sorry.
That's what concerns me about Arizona, is you have no Hopkins for 6 games into the season. You did the weird thing with Hollywood Brown, where you didn't pay Christian Kirk, but then you traded draft picks to give Hollywood Brown and then paid him, which, honestly, if you put Christian Kirk and Hollywood Brown, I don't think there's...
Can you tell them apart?
any difference in the two as receivers. And then you had the weird thing where they signed Murray to a very large deal, which... Very large. I think both of us were a little stunned. But then you put in the weird language where he has to study tape.
Which they ended up taking out at the end because his camp had an uproar about it.
But then you leak it to the press, which is even weirder. I don't know where this team sits. You extended Kingsbury and the GM, even though I don't know what either has done that have warranted extensions. So basically,
they're the first half season of the league champs.
You extended Murray, who I don't think either of us are sold are an elite QB. You extended Kingsbury, who I don't think any of us think is a top-tier coach. And you extended a GM who I'd say has been marginal at drafting players. He's the one who took Josh Rosen and then took Kyler Murray the next year, 1-1. So this ship looks to be sinking here. So I'm not sold that they're going to get off to the hot start that they need to, and then the tail is going to happen. And I think more than anything, I think this thing is ripe to start bickering and burning down. If Kyler's not good, he doesn't seem to be. The other thing, I don't think Kyler's loved by his teammates, whereas language like that does not get put into contracts if your teammates are going, oh yeah, he's working really hard, I think he knows the offense. That's coming from other sources, and that's probably other sources like said teammates. So this seems like a weird ship, whereas I think Seattle, I don't think the talent is as good as in Arizona, but they always seem to be a team. And I think they know what they're going to do this year. They're going to run the ball with Penny and the rookie running back. They still got threats on the outside, so they can run play action. Geno Smith might not be good, but he can probably make simple throws and probably not going to lose you a game. And if the defense is capable of reaching a level, I think they could be a little bit better than people expect. So that's my feel there. Let's go to the 2 teams that matter, I think, really, in this division. I've talked about it. The Rams, I think, are going to be really good, but I question whether they're going to be really good in the regular season. They already started floating, Matthew Stafford stuff. His elbow is banged up, his shoulder is banged up. We're already hearing it. He's taken the sort of mantra and title from Ben Roethlisberger of every joint in my body is hurt and I can't play, but then magically I'm on the field and can play. I'm curious how aggressive this defense is going to be, after sort of accomplishing their goal. They got to their goal. They won the Super Bowl in their window before, not having draft picks, not having salary cap space is going to hurt them. So I don't look for them to be probably as aggressive, I think, in the regular season. They're going to find their wins. They're going to get into the playoffs. And I think San Francisco is going to be aggressive in the regular season here. They're going to try to get Trey Lance reps. And I think that's where I put San Francisco above. But you could also convince me that Trey Lance isn't going to be as good. And you're going to get sort of that mixed bag that we've seen with the 49ers the last couple of years. How do you think this is going to play out across the top of that NFC West?
I'll start off with the Rams, okay? And I'll tell you this. I think that there's going to be a step back as far as the performance of the Rams is concerned. Not so much because they're going to be worse, but just because I feel like teams kind of know what's coming their way. I would be more concerned about a regression had they've had a young quarterback or a golf quarterback. But they've got Matthew Stafford, a veteran who's been to just about everything. You mentioned he's ailing a little bit, but when isn't he hurt? I mean, the guy's always hurt. He was hurt in the Super Bowl, and yet he's still out there making plays. So I'm not too concerned about the Rams. I think they'll be okay. I think defensively they got better. I think defensively we gave them too much credit last year just based off the names that were on that defense. You talk about Von Miller coming in late. You talk about Jalen Ramsey, one of the better cornerbacks in the league. Aaron Donald, probably the best defensive player in the league. And you just assume that defense is going to be great. And the reality was that they weren't. They were a bend and don't break defense. And I said this several times last year. They would allow teams to gouge them yards-wise. They just wouldn't give up any touchdowns. And I think that defensively they got better. I think the addition of Bobby Wagner, a guy who you can put in between Aaron Donald and Ramsey, is going to add just that much more flexibility on defense. They'll be able to do a lot more things that we're accustomed to seeing this Rams defense do. And so I think they'll be better defensively. I think offensively they're just kind of on par as to what they were last year. They did get a little bit bigger and a little bit more talented. That remains to be seen. But I think they'll be okay. Moving on to San Francisco here. Trey Lance, to me, is the biggest question mark in this division because this Niner team is Super Bowl ready. They're ready to compete for a championship. They've got the defense. They've got the skill players. They've got Deebo Samuel, who's probably one of the better two-way players in the league. They've got an entire freaking cavalry of running backs that they can go to, not to mention the fact that they've got one of the better tight ends, George Kittle, and a really good defense with also a bunch of interchangeable
try making
parts.
His name for the title of always something is joint ailing. I think it'll be a Stafford Kittle battle to overtake the Ben Roethlisberger roll and grab on the ground this season.
Do they have a bet like that? How many injuries will Stafford and
how many times do they roll holding a knee or an ankle or shoulder?
I'm sure you could find it somewhere, but. Yeah, listen, with this San Francisco team, they're a really good team. And there's one of the reasons why they were in the position they were in last year, competing for an NFC championship game, because they're really good. And I don't know if Lance is the guy who's going to get you over the hump. And I don't know what it's going to do to his confidence to know that the guy who just led his team to that position is basically sitting on the bench waiting for something to happen to you. I do tip my hat off to Jimmy G. He's a total pro for handling the situation the way he's handled it. He's getting paid big money to just kind of hang out back there as a backup quarterback, which is great for him. But, there's just little subtle things with that team that makes me feel like they can go from being a complete Super Bowl contender to can they even compete for this division?
Yeah. My only thing with believing in San Francisco is I don't think Shanahan would have made this switch if he didn't think Trey Lance was ready to sort of Cadillac this team and run them, because we've seen where he's drafted guys and then just sent them on the bench for games at a time and not cared. So I don't think he would have made the switch unless he thought Trey Lance was there. But also, I think we both have made jokes over the years that this man's ego is very large.
And that's what I was going to allude to. I was going to ask you this question is, yes, I agree with you. I think that it was the right move to make the switch at the quarterback. But I mean, isn't it more of a we moved ahead in the draft. We gave up assets to go after this guy. And we've been to a Super Bowl. We've been to an NFC Championship game with this guy. At some point, you had to make the move because of what you gave up. And I think that move was made more for just for face, to show face that, listen, we didn't move up in the draft for nothing. This is our guy. I don't think it's because he thinks he's ready. Because if that were the case, I don't know. I just think that the quarterback position is going to be huge for that team. Thankfully for them, they've got Jimmy G on the back burner. But I don't know if he made that move, that change, because he thought that Lance was ready.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to say that sort of helps is if Trey Lance were to get hurt, you got Jimmy G. You don't have the unknown. Your season isn't, we talked about it right off the bat. Any of these like elite quarterbacks get hurt, you're probably done. The one situation where it probably doesn't hurt you is San Francisco, where they go to Jimmy G, or if Trey Lance is just to the point where he's unplayable, you can make that switch and go to Jimmy G. So I look at that and see a little value there. And like I said, I just think the Rams are if they were in the AFC, I think I'd cause them more alarm bells. But I think they probably look at this and are like, we can cruise here and get into the playoffs. And then we can unleash Aaron Donald and we can unleash Bobby Wagner. Those guys don't have to put on the miles in this regular season. We just need to get into the playoffs and then be healthy in the playoffs and be ready to win a couple games here in the playoffs. Then we need to win 12, 13 games, get that number one seed, get home field advantage, and kill ourselves getting it. Because there are probably 3 teams in the NFC that legit you can say are title contenders. And that's putting Tampa Bay, where that situation is unknown. That's putting Green Bay, where that situation is unknown. And that's putting San Francisco, where that situation is a little unknown. So I just think LA's goal will be playoffs, be ready to win games in the playoffs. A little bit like an NBA sort of mentality for, an old school veteran team that knows it could be the 1, 2, 3 seed. They need to be healthy and ready to make that push in the playoffs. So that's why I think San Francisco be a little bit more aggressive this regular season. All right, let's go to our futures here. I don't have a ton. I got a bunch of San Francisco and not much else. 49ers to beat Baltimore in the Super Bowl, 150-1. 49ers to beat the Bills, 65-1. 49ers to beat the Chiefs, 85-1. San Francisco, number 1 overall seed, is 9-1. San Francisco NFC West winner, plus 170. I think that's pretty good value. You're getting plus 170. You probably got 2 teams who are going to contend for that spot to win the division. So almost 2-1. Thought pretty good value. Exact order, Niners, Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals, 22-1. And this one I really, really liked. Exact order, Niners, Rams, plus 390. I thought almost 4-1. That is nice because I think you could check off Arizona and Seattle, and it's basically Niners, Rams fighting for that top spot, and you got good value there at 390. Rams, I had no futures. I got a couple Cardinals ones. Arizona Cardinals, 4th finishing position is plus 390. Like I said, I think if that ship starts to burn early, that thing might be a melt job that we might see a really, really bad team there. And then Arizona under 8.5 wins, even money at minus 110. So those are my futures out of NFC West. Anything for you out of the NFC West?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. I've got the Rams to be the outright Super Bowl winner at plus 1100. And listen, I know that it hasn't happened since the 2003 2004 Patriots, but I feel like the Rams, as I mentioned earlier, improved defensively. They got better defensively, and they at least stayed on par offensively or got a slightly better. The offensive line is a little bit of an issue, but I feel there's some improvement to where they have a good shot, good enough shot at least. So I thought at plus 1100, that was pretty good value. I have the Colts and Rams to be in the Super Bowl at plus 6600. I've got AFC South plus NFC West to meet in the Super Bowl at plus 1800. I've got the exact outcome: Rams to beat the Colts plus 12,500, which is really good value. As I mentioned in our last episode, Colts have the easiest schedule based off strength of schedule, based off last season's results. The Rams were the defending champs, so I thought that was pretty good value there. And I think I've got two more here. I've got the Cardinals, who I believe are probably the third best team in that division, for a wild card spot at plus 290. And as you mentioned, the possibility of the Rams Super Bowl hangover, them not being, really pushing for division win, more kind of looking towards the playoffs. Got the Rams as a wild card team at plus 225.
All right. So that concludes our NFC season preview and part 2 of the Football Time Show. So be sure to join us for part 3 as we wrap up our 3-part NFL preview with our Player Future Awards. That's our show, and we're out.